Hello and welcome to The Print. I'm Snehesh Alex Philip. Well, the Aero India just ended and it started with an offer from the Russians to co-manufacture their so-called fifth generation fighter aircraft, that is the Su-57 in India. The Aero India ended with a possible offer from the US for their fifth generation fighter aircraft, the F-35. Now, what is it that India should really do? While we talk about India, what is it that the IAF really wants? Remember that as we speak, the IAF squadron strength, the fighter squadron strength, has come down to mere 31. And 31 is actually on papers because in reality, it is less than 30. To understand what the IAF needs, what should be the course ahead, I have with me the former Air Force Chief, Air Chief Marshal Chaudhari. Welcome to the Print, sir.
Thank you.
So my first question to you, what is really, this whole fifth generation fighter aircraft program? And you have an offer from the Russians as well as from the Americans. What is it that you as the Air Force want, sir?
Firstly, let's understand what is fifth generation and what does it bring on the table. This is a term which is very nebulous in terms of there are no particular specifications which can identify a fifth generation fighter, though companies like Lockheed Martin would give some specifications based on their own products. Notwithstanding that, what is to be understood is that there are certain features which are essential for the modern day, the future trajectory of warfare. First of them is stealth. The second is data and sensor fusion. And the third is to be able to carry out certain amount of super maneuverability, along with being a sort of a de facto command and control post in the air. So these are the features which will make up a fifth generation fighter. So if we talk about stealth firstly, stealth you understand is required to be able to penetrate enemy air defenses and to go without being detected, which is, which will help a long way in meeting the primary targeting aims of the Indian Air Force. So fifth generation technologies, no doubt, are essential. We need to accelerate our own fifth generation program, that is the AMCA, so as to get it into our inventory at the earliest. So that should be the aim, I think.
So, on this Su-57, India was part of this whole FGFA program with Russia, right? We had an agreement in 2007, then we formally signed in 2010. We pumped in nearly about 300 million into this project, but it was under this very same government, the Narendra Modi government in 2018, that the IAF walked out of the program. What was the reason of walking out, sir?
There were two or three issues which were connected to this. Number one was, of course, to give impetus to our own AMCA program, which by that time we had clarity on the way forward on the AMCA. And we said that we can go alone on it, and instead of partnering with the PACFA program of Russia.
Yeah.
The second, of course, was also the fact that we understood the amount of data transfer or the information available in the cockpit. We were also looking at the two-seater aircraft at that time. Okay. So this was also one of the factors, but primarily I think it was the lack of clear understanding into what kind of technology would be transferred to us, quantum of technology, and of course our how it was going to stymie our own AMCA program at that time.
So, when in 2018, when the RFI for the MRFA program was being worked about, I remember speaking to senior IAF officials then, and they used to, we used to often talk about the F-35 offer, right? So at times, some of the IAF officials have said that if there is an F-35 is indeed if there's an offer, the IAF would look into it. Now you have a semi-balance of an offer which is there. Does it make sense for India to go in for any of these two fighters while the AMCA program is on, while there is a 97 more Tejas Mark 1A to be ordered, Tejas Mark 2 to be ordered? Does it make sense to the IAF, sir? What should the IAF do at this moment?
The idea is to build up capability and maintain our potency. So how we do it is through our own, the way we've charted our course for the future is through the procurement of the LCA Mark II to replace the Mirages and the Jaguars and the MiG-29s early next decade, and which will be followed up by the AMCA program. We had also planned that the MRFA will meet the requirement of numbers of 4.5 generation aircraft. So our RFI, which was floated, and the responses we got were based on a 4.5 generation aircraft platform only. We had never sought for a fifth generation platform in that RFI, and it was not a part of the competition for the MRCA program.
Yeah. So now what happens? So the MRFA program gets delayed, or what is your fear when it comes to the MRFA? Because there has not been any clearance from the government as far as the MRFA is concerned.
No, in my opinion, should not get delayed. We should still push ahead with the MRFA with a very large make in India content. That should be the bottom line, of course, that whichever aircraft we select will be largely made in India with a very high indigenous content in that. So that should be the push because getting the AMCA, we are aware it is going to take some time to build up a squadron strength of AMCA is going to be a long way from today.
Okay, so you're saying AMCA is going to be a long way. So while we go for the MRFA, are you also suggesting a look at the fifth generation fighters on offer? And should there be an interim arrangement for that, just like what happened in 2016 for the Rafales?
See, it is very difficult for me to give a commitment on this on a one-on-one basis. I think we need to have some kind of an expert committee with all the stakeholders involved to decide the way forward on this. So it is incorrect for me to now give a commitment on this, I think.
Perfect. So I perfectly understand. So you have China, which is operating fifth generation fighter aircraft. You also have reports that the Pakistanis are also going to get, one of the version of the so-called fifth generation that Chinese have. In our sense, while we talk about stealth, when we come to Pakistan, there is an overwhelming view that you don't need fifth generation fighters to take on Pakistan, right? Because we now have, it's all beyond visual range. We have BrahMos, the range has been extended. We have other missile defense systems. But when it comes to China, yes, fifth generation is needed. But then there were people who would question whether are we going to really go deep into China to strike in case there is a conflict. So why does India really need a fifth generation fighter aircraft?
Primarily, I told you, the capability of today's air defenses is such that a conventional aircraft in a contested airspace will have to really take all measures to outmaneuver the enemy's air defenses as well as his fighter aircraft. In that sense, the survivability of a fifth generation fighter, a stealth platform, is going to be much higher. The fifth generation fighter can also operate standalone without much protection from other aircraft, which conventional fourth generation aircraft do require. We require electronic warfare escorts. We require so many other. It's a large package which is usually formulated to address any target. So a stealth aircraft will obviate the need for larger packages. They can do standalone attacks. They can penetrate dense air defenses without being detected. So the advantages are numerous.
So also, while we talk about the fifth generation fighter aircraft, stealth and other things, but one of the key components of a fighter aircraft are the missiles per se, right? The Russians, we've been using the Russian fighters in terms of missile capability. It is comparatively less compared to what our indigenous missiles Astra is, right? Or for the Western missile system itself. How important is it to develop our own missile systems, and is it possible to integrate with the fifth generation fighter programs?
It goes without saying that one needs to, put in all effort that we can to enhance the capabilities of our weapon systems, the indigenous weapon systems. So we have the Astra program, which is well underway. The future editions of the Astra are also under the design and development phase, and we hope they will be inducted soon. Having said that, it goes without saying that this process of research and development into longer ranges, better seekers, more maneuverable missiles is a never-ending one. And we should not rest on the laurels that we already built and beyond visual range missile, and that's all we're going to need. We're going to need much more in future.
So, while I'll come back to your successors' recent comments, Air Chief Marshal AP saying, in candid comments which were captured on camera, these were private conversations which captured on a camera by a particular YouTuber. Just wanted to understand. He said he was very upset with the HL, and about the pace of delivery, and he said maza nahi aa raha hai, and he said that the HL lacks a mission mode. I remember that you, as the Air Force chief, till a few months back, you were also not really happy with the pace at which the HAL was working, right? So, is what should be done in your mind, sir? Now you're out of the service, you can speak more freely, right? What is the solution to this problem which is there, sir?
Now, fundamentally, what we need to understand is identify what are the bottlenecks in the production of HAL. By just blaming one aspect that the engine delivery was not on time or something else is not adequate analysis as to where the shortfalls lie. So, we have a fairly decent idea as to what are the shortcomings, what are the bottlenecks, where is the production holdups taking place right now. And the mitigating solutions to that would lie in multiplying the production lines, multiplying the suppliers for components, not only just increasing the number of final assembly lines, which right now HAL is planning to do, to
Yeah.
increase assembly lines in Nasik also. But the bottlenecks are not necessarily at the final assembly lines. They could lie at various other points. So we need to identify that and see where the private sector and other public sector can chip in to enhance the production rate of components which are holding up production.
So, while the HL talks about the engine issue, there's no denying about the fact that GE has delayed it by 2 years. I had done this report talking about another product, which is part of the avionics, a small part which was supposed to be imported and now has come on an import ban list. So I was told that there is only limited numbers and HL is trying to indigenize it. So you're saying there are issues beyond just the engines itself.
That's right. So, it's not just the engines. I mean, there are lakhs of components which go into making a fighter aeroplane.
Yeah.
And even once for the, like they say, for the want of an horseshoe, the kingdom could be lost. So, it could be want of one small component for which we do not have the expertise or the production quantities are not adequate to encourage somebody to make them in India. And we are still dependent on somebody else for it. It could be any way. What I'm trying to get at is we need to identify which are these bottlenecks and then mitigate each of them independent. Don't look at the whole package that we will get it all in order. Let's do it in by identifying each of the bottlenecks separately.
So, do you think it would make sense for Air Force to depute a serving officer in HAL to head the LCA project itself?
Of course, it goes without saying. It is definitely will make a big difference when you are part of the ecosystem and when you understand it from within. So there are no more, we don't have to listen to some stories which may or may not be, correct. What they're telling us is only palatable to some people. So yes, it is always good to have. I'm not saying to have an inside man, but to have somebody who is part of the system running the whole program. Yes.
Is this a proposal that have been shared with the government in the past under your tenure also, sir?
Yes, we have shared.
You've shared such a proposal. What has
We've,
been the
we've,
response
we've
so far?
suggested such proposals.
Hmm.
Yeah, but
Okay. So one more thing. Now we are talking about Tejas Mark II and the AMCA. Now the whole worry is that the Tejas itself is a long story. Now the HL would say that a lot has to be blamed on the sanctions, and then they blame, of course, the IAF for changing their requirements or not for stating the requirements in time. But then when it comes to AMCA, which is the futuristic project, right, and they have a very tight schedule and a very optimistic schedule right now, to fly AMCA by 2035. Do you think that the current process is enough, or do you think that the AMCA project should be taken up as a national priority and should be brought under, let's say, the PMO, which runs the strategic programs for India, sir?
Yeah, firstly, let me dispel some kind of a myth that goes on to say that the Indian Air Force has been changing the QRs. Let me assure you that the QRs are never changed. It is not that by when we slash something and we add something. To give you an example, even for the LCA project, only one or two QRs were changed because of the changes in technology. When we had originally envisaged the LCA program, we had sought certain kind of, close combat missiles. But those missiles, by the time the LCA came out, were no more in production anywhere. So obviously, we have to change it to increase the range and capabilities of the missile systems. For the LCA Mark II, for example, the SQRs have been frozen a few years ago. We have not changed any of them. It is just a misnomer, a myth that the Indian Air Force keeps changing the SQRs. So let's be very clear on that issue. On the AMCA program, it goes without saying that we have been part of it right from beginning. We have been deeply involved in formulating the PSQRs for that, and definitely, like you said, the boost to the program will come if it is taken up in mission mode, like Marshal AP Singh I just mentioned. That mission mode under whatever. I mean, whether, as you suggested, it could be anybody who's running it, but a little independent from the standard procedures that we've been following is what is going to be required.
Okay. So, since you spoke about allegations, now whenever anybody writes on, Air Force, you have multiple people accusing the armed forces and especially the Air Force of being import, loving. There is a whole set of people who would accuse the Air Force and the other two services also, more with the Air Force, that there is an inherent love for imports and that the Air Force is not backing, indigenous program. I know for the fact that Tejas Mark 1A, Tejas is a reality because of the Air Force. When the Air Force ordered in 2016 the 40 Tejas orders, the Tejas were still not as per the requirements of the Air Force, but the Air Force still went in for that. The Tejas Mark 1A is actually a compromise on behalf of the Air Force, because what the Air Force really wanted was the Tejas Mark II with much higher variants. So how would you respond to these allegations that constantly comes on the Air Force?
I think they're quite baseless to a very large extent. If you look at the procurements of the Indian Air Force in the last 1 decade, let's start from the radars, the SAGW systems. Apart from the S-400, we have got everything indigenous. All the radars have been indigenous. The newer systems which are being procured are indigenous. Tendency is to only look at the fighter aircraft program based on the MMRCA requirement, which started in early 2000,
Yeah.
and the procurement of the Rafale, which came as a result of that. But apart from that, we have completely backed all indigenous programs. Apart from the 83 LCA, the 97 additional LCA Mark 1A is awaiting clearance. We have already given a commitment for LCA Mark II before even the first prototype has been rolled out. We have given a commitment for the AMCA, for 6 counts of AMCA, even before the final drawings have been completed. So I think it's a baseless accusation to say that we are only looking at imports. Definitely, some technologies, some products which are not available, we are forced to go abroad for that. But it is not that we have a penchant for procuring everything from abroad. I think let's dispel that myth.
Absolutely. So my last question to you, while we talk about fighters, whenever it comes to Air Force modernization, focus on fighters. But the fact is that, the Indian Air Force is lacking in strength when it comes to AWACS, right? Eye in the sky. The Indian Air Force is lacking strength when it comes to mid-air refuelers. There is also the transport aircraft element, which is there. There is a RFI that has been issued for the medium transport aircraft. So how do these all programs come together? The focus on fighters, but the other things gets left behind.
No, I think it's incorrect to say that we are only focusing on the fighters. It's a parallel procedure which happens. It is the overall capability building which is taken into consideration. And while we are, of course, progressing the MRFA case and the fighter program because of the rapidly depleting strengths, We also have been pursuing the case for the tankers. We have already contracted for getting a tanker on lease for the time being, and thereafter the procurement case is in progress. Similarly, for the AVAX and the AEWC. Mind you, once again, both of them are completely Make in India programs.
Yeah.
So, we are not seeking anything from anywhere else. We are just seeking more of the Netra that we already got and advanced version of the AEWC Mark II.
Yeah.
So again, we are only looking inside indigenous production of such capability. And it goes without saying that these kind of platforms, which are the combat support or combat enhancers, are equally important as are the fighters.
Sir, I know I said the last question, but I just have one more question on the F-35. Now, there's a whole, Elon Musk had famously tweeted a few weeks back saying that F-35 is a bad aircraft and the future is of unmanned aerial systems. There are many in India who would say that it is foolish to spend so much and invest so much in fighter aircraft when the future is about drones, unmanned thing. How would you respond to that? Is manned aircraft no longer relevant? Maybe it is relevant now, but from a decade from now.
No, I think it's too early to write the obituary of fighter aircraft. They have a very, very critical role in any future conflict. Of course, the drones and unmanned will also have an equal say in any of the future conflicts. But till the time the cost of production of unmanned platforms comes down drastically, till the time the artificial intelligence on that overtakes or supersedes what is existing now with the human intelligence in terms of taking a decision in the air, in terms of evading weapons and so on, till it matures to an extent where it is affordable, manned aircraft are here to stay.
Manned aircraft, you say. Thank you so much, sir, for speaking to the print. It's a pleasure, as always, interacting with you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Snehesh. All the best to you.